So hi, I'm Sebastian Gonzalez. I'm CBO, Chief Business Officer at Roboyo for Western Europe and Mexico. And I have the pleasure today to have Jannette from Starboard Cruise Services with me. Jannette, tell us a little bit about Starboard Cruise and also your role in the organization.
Thank you, Sebas. I appreciate the time. Like you said, my name is Jannette Flores. I am the Senior Director and Controller for Starboard Cruise Services. We are the global market leader in retail at sea. We basically manage the shops on major cruise lines. And we pride ourselves by creating memories for people that are on vacation. I've been with the company now for 13 years, and really I love Starboard. It's embedded into my DNA.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about your automation journey. So how did it started? Was there a specific event, a business challenge that the organization was facing that prompted you guys actually to look into these new technologies, this new approach? Did you see any challenges during the way, etc.? Basically, how did you guys started with the automation program?
So thank you for that opportunity. I think when we initially started learning about robots and automations, I don't think we ever imagined that we would be here today talking about our story. But our story started during COVID. So sadly, I know a lot of businesses were affected by COVID, but I can tell you that the cruise line industry was significantly affected by COVID. So during that period, cruises were stopped at sea. Nobody was traveling. The news about traveling on ships were not the best, right? Everybody in the media was not talking positively about cruising. So that really changed our business, right? And there was zero revenue. And unfortunately, we had to downsize some of our employees. And we didn't know when we were going to go back to business. When were we going to start? How many people were going to cruise? Were people going to buy when they were going to cruise? So there was a lot of uncertainties. What we did know is that eventually, at some point in time, the cruise line industry was going to come back. And how were we going to be ready to do this with the staff that we had? We knew that we needed to change the way we do business, right? We had to focus on value-added processes rather than non-value added. But how are we going to do that, right? If you're not using things like automations and if you're not aware of them, sometimes it's very difficult to find ways to change the way you do stuff. So the good thing for us is that we are one of the maisons for LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. And there was a period of time that they had finance meetings up in their New York office. And our CFO attended one of those meetings. And their IT department started talking about this automation and robots. What that meant at that time, we really didn't know, but our Chief Financial Officer, Perla Fernandez, came back very excited with this news and said, I think I found something that's really going to help us and we need to start looking into it. We didn't know what it meant. You know, when you talk about robots, you kind of picture a physical robot and you're like, what is this robot gonna do? Is it gonna sit somewhere? What exactly does the robot do? So we started on that journey and we said, okay, you know, let's give this a try. Maybe it really can change the way we do things. And the department that we decided to start with, funny, was finance. And we really wanted to make a change and present that change to the rest of the team. So we started our journey by working through UiPath. And it was kind of difficult at first because you need to look at your processes and decide, you know, which one is really going to make an impact. And so we chose things that are low-hanging fruit, right? The things that we felt that were documented and they were easy really to identify the processes. And so we picked 3 processes at the time. The things that we learned is that sometimes it's better to look at a process from beginning to the end rather than a piece of the process, which is what we did with one of our the transactions that we automated. But at the time, we didn't really know what the robot can do. And I'm going to call her Rosie because that's what we named our robot. So in working with UiPath, we gathered all the information about these 3 processes, and we met very frequently with the UiPath team to go over the way that we do certain things and wait for their recommendations on what we needed to do. And that's kind of like how we started.
Perfect, very good. And I mean, you mentioned, that you even gave a name to this automation,
Yes.
etc. I mean, it was difficult times. A lot of organizations struggled a lot. Some took the decision, like you, to actually look at potentially new approaches to their business, new technologies to optimize their operations. You had a strong sponsor. So you mentioned that CFO that was really the big sponsor of this program,
Yes, and our CEO as well. They
and the
were
CEO,
both,
correct?
yes, they
And
both really
how did
sponsored.
you see the team internally um, during a difficult time actually accepting new ways of working? Because it's actually a new way of working, when you have automation, etc.
Yeah.
And was it positively received at the beginning? Was it a little bit of challenge? And did you take time to do awareness sessions? How was the mood a little bit in the team?
Look, I think it's really normal when you talk to a team and you tell them that their job, or at least a portion of their job, is going to be automated. The initial reaction is, for the most part, always going to be, what's going to happen to my job? Is everything going to go away? What am I going to do differently? Do you really think a robot can come in and do what I do? So involving them in the process and really talking to them about what we are trying to do. And it's really not about eliminating a position, but it's really about improving the way that they work, right? We want people to focus on value-added processes and really not waste their time on things that we can automate. And we involved as many people of the actual process that we could, not just for understanding what they did, because sometimes you think that processes are a straight line, but they're really not when you start looking at it. They're like squiggly lines all over the place. And there's a lot of people that touch certain processes that don't realize how much it impacts the entire task. So involving the people that are doing it, I think, is key. Being honest and genuine about what you're trying to do, making it a somewhat fun event, because at the beginning, people have to continue to do their regular job plus work on the process to set up the automation, right? Because there's a lot of work involved to get the Rosies of the world to work. So you have to make them fun. You have to involve everybody. And you have to be honest and make sure that they understand that this is a process to improve the way they work, not to eliminate
Eliminate.
their jobs.
Very good. And when you started this journey, did you have specific objectives, KPIs that you actually pushed forward to measure success?
Well, we knew at the beginning with the tasks that we were automating, the amount of either hours or the percentage of someone's work that took. So we knew, for example, with our consignment periodic activity, one of the ones that we showed during our presentation, that took for sure 2 people working 4 to 5 hours a month. So we knew exactly what we were going to save. And we also planned, what can we implement now? How can these people spend their time helping in other processes, right? We also knew that on cycle counts, it took about 30 to 40% of their time. And we really want people to be able to look at the reports from the cycle count and make recommendations and suggestions. You're an analyst, right? You're not somebody that's just preparing the report. So we need to make sure that people are spending their time and what they need to do. So yes, we knew the savings time that we were going to have, and ultimately we knew that it was an enhancement that we really wanted to automate during this process.
Perfect. And I mean, again, mentioning the fact that you really needed to fast track a little bit your initiative, so get things moving fast.
Right.
How did you see the strong collaboration between, for example, UiPath and Roboyo in this journey with your team to get things moving fast, to have the experts on board, etc.? Any things that you really appreciated from this collaboration that you saw the fast track happen?
Look, finding the right partner is very important because, one, you tend to work with the partner a lot. You spend a lot of your time with these individuals. 2, you really want them to listen to what you do because they can come back to you with recommendations and suggestions. So it's not just about taking exactly what you do and just replicating it, but finding better ways of doing it, right? And three, you want somebody who's really interested in learning about your business and wanting to make enhancement and improvements. So we really thought that the collaboration that we received from UiPath at the beginning was an important one. We really looked forward to meeting with the team, spending time with them. They cared about learning about our business, and on several processes, for example, on the cycle count one, they came back and they asked us a lot of questions like, why do you do this like this? Have you thought about doing this like that? And that really helped us fast track to make sure things were done quickly, but to make sure that they were done right.
Perfect. And how for the team and your side again to mention the fast track, the etc. So starting with the vendor UiPath, how did you see then after the collaboration also with the Roboyo team that was coming with the expertise etc. to help you actually scale and again fast track your and accelerate your automation program?
So the relationships with Roboyo have also been great, right? Once Rosie was finalized, now it's a matter of tweaking Rosie, right? Because most cases have to go back and make adjustments to Rosie, improve her, maintain her. So having that relationship again is key. You want to find people that understand your business, that want to spend time modifying and making changes to the robots. And so far, it's been great, right? We have struggled a little bit with some of the processes. And like I said at the beginning, sometimes there are steps that are missed that people do that they don't realize impact the process. And sadly, sometimes you find about these things at the end when Rosie starts to not function correctly. And it's really not her fault, but it's rather a human error for not knowing something that is key. But no, I think it's been great. We've had wonderful relationships with UiPath and Roboyo. The team has really enjoyed, obviously we don't enjoy the errors that we find along the way, right? We'd prefer things to be smooth, but it's the nature of the beast. It's part of the journey to automate.
Yes, and it's part of the, I would say, try something, fail fast, but adapt and change the structure afterwards. You mentioned a lot about Rosie. Is she part of the organization structure?
It's funny that you say that because yesterday I did have an opportunity to meet a lot of people and talk to them, and there's people that actually put their robots on the org chart. And we haven't done that yet, but we will definitely do that. That's something that I'm taking back with me because, like I said, you have to make this process kind of fun, right? And people need to adapt and see these robots as part of their lives, part of their work. So people have to enjoy it. After we did these three processes, now that we're talking about Rosie and having fun with the automation, we went back to our business and all the different departments and talked about the automations that we've put in place so they can understand it a little bit better. And people went out and started looking at the processes that they had to try and see if they can create their own Rosies. And we're seeing now that people want to create their own robots, name their own robots, and it becomes fun for everybody.
Very good.
Yeah.
And one thing that we see a lot in companies that start their automation journey is actually the relationship and the collaboration with the IT team. How was this done in Starboard Cruises? I mean, you're part of a huge group, the LVMH group. How was the collaboration with the IT team? Were they on board with you guys at the beginning? Did you have to convince them a little bit, do awareness sessions to bring them on board? What was the process to also have them in the team?
Right. So we are really lucky at Starboard because we work well together, and our IT department jumped on board when we started talking about the automation. Our business, so every department at Starboard has a business analyst that is kind of our liaison between the business and the developers that we have as part of our team. So IT was part of the process from the very beginning. So we involved the expert in the area, we involved the actual people that do the work, and we included our business analysts from IT. So they were part of the process from beginning to end. And I think it's key that they be part of the process because they really need to make sure that the process is properly documented and maintained going forward.
Very good. And you mentioned, like a little bit the excitement of other business in the organization, looking into automation,
Right,
naming. So I don't know what would be the next name, maybe
right.
Roger or
Neither do I.
it'd be fun, like a competition inside
Right.
the house. How is basically the teams within Starboard Cruise? Are they also adopting the technology in terms of upskilling? Are they looking to actually, oh, okay, Roboyo is doing this, and they're helping us on the strategy with UiPath and on the development, on the support? But do you see also a, a drive within the business units and trying also to upskill on these new technologies that are again technologies of today, but also of tomorrow?
Right. Yes. So when we went out to the teams to talk about the automation, they came back with like 21 processes that they thought were a good candidate for automation, right? So, yes, 21 items in the pool is a lot. Everybody's always asking, can we automate this? Is this something that Rosie could do? So, most definitely, everybody in the company is really excited about this. They are trying to identify things that we can improve. We have some significant processes in other areas that we think the Rosies of the world can really make a dent in the process and ensure that we're focused on value added and not non-value added. And then we scale ourselves correctly for the business to continue to grow.
Perfect. So we always ask, that's the big question, is okay, what were the results? So can you walk us through a little bit, so first of all, how long did it take to have the first process in production? And what are the results today that you see in the business? How did it impact the organization and Starboard Cruise, especially after the COVID, now that it's back also into the business? What were the big results that you saw in the organization?
So the length of time for us was a short period because we wanted to see fast results. So everybody really jumped on this process. Out of the 3 that we automated, the one that I would say immediately when we turned on worked great was our periodic activity. So it's the process that pulls the reports for our consignment vendors and gets sent out to the vendors automatically. That one we knew that when we started was a low-hanging fruit because we knew exactly what the process was. There weren't too many hands in the pool. So as soon as we turned on Rosie with that, it worked great. The only part of it that we wish we would have done at the beginning is the second portion of it, which is actually looking for the email from the vendor, pulling the invoice and processing it. Again, we didn't know that that was something that Rosie could do, so we didn't talk about the entire process. We just did a portion. So that one was fairly quick, and we saw the results immediately because vendors are happy that they're receiving their reports earlier. We have a little bit more time to answer questions from the vendors, reconcile statements, many other things that we've redirected resources that we have now to do something different. For the posting of the receivers, that one we thought was going to be something that we could turn on fairly quickly and was going to work great. But we've had to invest a little bit more time on this after we turned her on, just because of the squiggly lines in the process, things that we didn't know affected the posting of the receivers. So we did have to go back and tweak, let's say, Rosie. And we've been tweaking her and working with Roboyo on making her work better. And so far, the improvements that we've seen are great, but we still monitor the process to make sure that nothing else falls through the cracks. And then the third process that we automated, which was cycle counts, we've seen some improvements there. I think working with Rosie in that process is a little bit different because Rosie communicates with the analyst, and so she has to wait until the analyst responds to move to the second step. So that's one that we need to ensure that the team understands how to work with Rosie, and if anything is different, again, tweaking Rosie's job, let's say. But that's another one that we think that we can now use once it's fully perfected with our physical inventories. And the improvement there, we estimate, was about 30 to 40% of the analyst time that we've removed, giving them real time to analyze the results.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You mentioned that the automation is communicating with
Yes.
with the analyst, and so really bringing the human in the loop of the
Yes.
process. And I think it reflects what you mentioned at the beginning, where the objective is not to replace the humans by the robot. It's to enhance them and actually remove them from these tedious tasks. But again, during exceptions, you bring them, you ask, I'm not sure about this, can you help me? And then you redirect, etc. I mean, you talked also a lot about, sometimes the process was not defined entirely, so you need to go back and tweak it, etc. One thing that we see a lot also in the next phases of intelligent automation is also rethinking processes at the very beginning, so that the technology is actually not the solution always, but actually is just doing a little bit of process reengineering, lean improvement, etc. Is this something that you're now doing also as you're, again, scaling up in this automation space, that you actually look at the process end to end and you rethink and you challenge the business owners, etc., with this process?
So we do that internally with the 21 processes that I mentioned earlier that the teams identified. IT worked closely with the departments to kind of do like the deep dives and understand the end-to-end process of the entire project to really identify what can be automated, right? So it's not just internal, but it's also together with Roboyo, right? Because when you have a second pair of eyes that's looking at the process and having questions asked, like, why do you do this? Can you do this a little bit different? Or we can't do this portion of it because Rosie is unable to do it. We still need a human to come in and do it. I think those are all learnings that we took from the first 3 processes that we automated. So we do it internally, right? We took those 21 processes, and I think we identified between 4 and 6 of those 21 processes that are really worth putting through the automation and the Rosies of the world. But I think in partnership with Roboyo, we really need to do even further deep dives just to make sure that that the best way to automate it is what we identify, or maybe if there's another opportunity to do things differently.
I mean, we mentioned it at the very beginning. You're part of the
Yes.
LVMH group.
Yes.
It's quite interesting to see that the initiative that you took, which is very innovative, is for some organizations, especially on the huge multinationals, etc. Sometimes going into the innovation space is a little bit okay. It's a risk, but it's also changing the ways we're working, etc.
Right.
So sometimes it's like, okay, we're not going to go there because again we're not sure, etc. But you guys, for different reasons, also because of the pandemic, they said no, we have to go there, and you had the big sponsorship, etc. And now it's funny because you actually see road shows that you're doing with other brands in the group, other maisons. How do you see Starboard Cruise having an impact on this innovation space, on the overall LVMH group?
So thanks for asking that. LVMH and Starboard, or Starboard to LVMH, right, is fairly small maison, right? We are under their selective retailing. But it's really nice to see that we've made a significant impact. Our footprint in automation is fairly big if you compare us to other maisons. So I really appreciate the fact that this was an initiative kind of that started with LVMH, because they introduced us to the automation and the robotization and the support that we received internally to go ahead and do this. And I think it's not just because we needed to change the way we do stuff so that we can be better prepared as a business restarted and as we continue to grow, but I think it's also really important because a lot of the new talent, right, that's out there in the pool that you're trying to bring into your company, their generation thinks very differently, right? And you have to make sure that you're poised and you're up to date with new technology that's coming out so that you could bring in this talent. We're really excited that it really started with finance because usually finance is not the first department that starts with automation. So we're really excited, not just about the footprint that we made within LVMH, but the fact that we did this, it worked, we turned it around fairly quickly, and we're looking at further automation. So we think that puts us in the cutting edge of
Cutting edge.
yes
Exactly.
of other
So
companies.
you talked about also looking at other stuff, other units, etc. What are the next phases of your journey? What are you looking at the moment? Are you looking at other technologies, other business unit, other processes? So tell us a little bit about, I would say, like you mentioned Rosie, like
Yes.
the next Rosies.
Yes. So, like I said, the company is really excited about this. The teams they're always asking about opportunities to automate as they learn everything that Rosie can do. So, in finance, we're continuing to enhance Rosie, right? We're doing the second part of the consignment periodic process that we do. And then IT, based on resources and how they prioritize projects, is working with other departments. So particularly our logistics, our supply chain, our transportation, like those are big areas of improvements that we could do. There's some that are being done with HR. So it's basically touching all departments within the company. There's really a lot that the Rosies of the world can do. And the more that we work with Rosie and with Roboyo, we're learning even more. So it helps us identify other things that we can automate. So there's stuff that we're currently working on, and there's still additional projects that we have in the pipeline. So once we finish the new ones that are being worked, I'm sure there's going to be other opportunities to work with robotization. Learning from other companies is a bigger piece, right? Like I know one of the presentations that we saw talked about applications. So that's another automation that at any time we can see how we can apply that to other processes that we have in-house. So, I mean, the possibilities are
Infinite.
Are endless, yes.
Perfect. When people, they look into, okay, I want to start my automation program, but I don't really know how to do it. Because you went through actually the full
Yes.
process now, what would be your 3 recommendations for an organization that say, okay, I want to go into this field, I need to optimize my operations. What would be your 3 learnings?
Look, I think it's really important. One is to make sure that your processes are documented, that you talk not only to the subject matter expert of the area or the managers or the directors that are involved, but you need to talk to the doers, like the actual people that do the processing. Yes. I think you need to make sure that there's a flow chart, that you process it, that you walk everybody through and make sure that you've captured every single step in the process. And then I think if you're trying to figure out which ones you need to focus on, it's the low-hanging fruits are probably the best to start with because you can see immediate results and you kind of get your feet wet in the process because when we talk about automation, I think at times people may not really understand what that means if you're not like working in that field directly. What is automation? What's the best area to start with? So if you work on smaller projects, get your feet wet in the process and really understand what they can do, then it's much easier to see how Rosie's worked. Like, for example, we did in our presentation, we showed different clips of Rosie in action. And I had a lot of people that actually came to me and said, the best thing about the presentation was watching the videos because you really see the automation in action. And if you're not in the field, it's kind of difficult to really understand what exactly is the robot and how do you set up the automation. Those are the basic questions that people always ask. So it's making sure that you have the process document, going to the doers, understanding the whole flow, and building that relationship with the partner that you're working with is key.
Perfect. And I mean, to conclude maybe on this, because again, you guys started in the intelligent automation space. It has a lot of ecosystem, and you see a lot of new topics coming. We talk a lot about artificial intelligence, generative AI at the moment, etc. Um, as the business, you were a little bit fast tracking the innovation space. Are you also looking or attentive to all of these
Of course.
buzzword, everything that you see? And
Yes.
is this important for you guys
Of
also for the
course,
attraction of
it
talent?
really is. And again, the relationship with the company is important. And having a company like Roboyo that wants to learn about your business is key because you really are the company that can tell us, hey, instead of using these robots, these are other areas that you could look at that improve the process, right? Learning about what other companies are doing. Sometimes when you have too many robots, eventually as you start automating your processes, is that the best way? Or perhaps there's another way to capture all these robots into one process. So definitely, if there are other ways that we can improve the process, that's key. It's really about wanting to make sure that your teams are working smart and not wasting their time on what they're doing. And if there's other ways that we can improve that process, you need to stay in the cups of transitioning and what's the technology and everything that's out there to be profitable, right? And to continue to grow your business is very important.
Yeah, and then sometimes it's not, I would say, technology. It can be actually not technology. It can be, just rethinking how the process is run,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
To finish this one, how do you see the team today? I mean, it was a journey. I mean,
Yes.
it's not ending. There's still a lot of things.
Yes.
How do you see the mood in the team after a difficult period? I mean, again, the pandemic, especially in your sector, you've done an innovation. You kickstarted an innovation initiative. It has had an impact on the overall group. You got a little bit the spotlight. So how do you see all of this actually with the team today?
Yeah. I think on the processes that have already been completed, they are adapting now to a new way of working, right? And being able to spend their time on really things that is part of their job, right? Really being an analyst. I know that sometimes it was a little bit frustrating when Rosie breaks or she stops working, right? Because you have to go back, spend more time, and really think about, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? So working through it, I think people understand, yes, it's worth doing it, and I can see where we made the mistakes and what we need to do a little bit better. So people are happy about the innovation. They're excited about things that can be improved in the future. But we did go through a period of frustration, right? And a period of doing a lot of work to get the Rosie started. But the processes that are fully working, I think excite people to,
Yeah, it gives them back
new
time
things.
and
Yes, yes. But it is a process that's difficult. So you're excited at first because you're like, oh my God, this is going to be fun. It's great. Let's do it.
you get your hands dirty and
Yes, yes. During the process, a little bit frustrating because you didn't realize how much work it involved, and you're still doing your processes. So it's not like if you don't have to do the work that's there, you have to do it. Plus, you have to work on getting this done, right? And the tweaking sometimes is frustrating for the team, but I think they do see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the fact that we have other departments excited about this as well, I think it's key.
And do you see yourself having, maybe you or in the team in the future, like a full-time employee of Starboard Cruise, only focusing on
Yes,
automation?
yes, yes.
So like all,
That's very important. It's important because we need to have somebody who's thinking about continuing this process, right, and making us better, but also to help track Rosie, right? I mean, ultimately, Rosie needs to
needs to
be
report,
somehow
report
managed.
to someone.
Yeah, she does report work, so she's like an employee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but Jannette, thank you very much for sharing your adventure, your initiative, your insights. I mean, looking forward also to continue the collaboration with you guys, with UiPath and Roboyo in the next phases of the journey with with Starboard Cruise Services.
Thank you so much, Sebas. Again, I tell you, I don't think that when we started this entire process of doing improvements and bringing in automation, that we would have had such a successful process, and we've been able to be here and talk about our automation. So we really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.